Hi everyone again, my name is Brian with Spinties and I am so excited to be here in the lab at Bionic Prosthetics and Orthotics with Sagar Shetty. And we are today going to be talking about, this is our final webinar, by the way. If you haven't had an opportunity yet, go back and watch the other 3 webinars as we have deep dived into the printing processes, scanning, materials. We've talked about integration and implementation and so much more. So we're going to wrap things up here with a kind of future perspective and scope of where we see 3D technology going. And it's not just going to be from us. You'll join us there at the end of the video here to join us at AOPA National Conference. And so where do you see this technology going in the future?
Well, definitely the digital workflow in O&P is the future. And what's important is, how quickly people embrace this technology. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the digital workflow is going to become part and parcel of the O&P workflow. I mean, if you look at O&P traditionally, for a very long time, the traditional workflow has been in place where you take a cast, you have a plaster model, you do hand modifications, you fabricate these devices. And this has worked. It is time tested. It has worked for a very long time. But with the digital workflow, you are able to produce the same or better quality product with a lot more efficiency built into the processes. It saves you a lot of time. It saves you a lot of labor. It saves you a lot of money. And that enables you to spend more time with your patient. And that's why it is important to embrace this. This is definitely going to be the future, because also with the way things are in the O&P world, you have to spend so much time. Again, we talked about it in some of our previous webinars. You spend so much time on documentation. If you can improvise the processes where you can make the process efficient, where you are spending more time with the patient, and the digital workflow can help you produce the device in a shorter duration, I think that's a win-win.
Yeah, and I see everything that you're saying there, plus the reimbursement climate. Mm-hmm. That is such a big driver of innovation. Right. And you would think that maybe because the reimbursement system today is challenging, to say the least, yep, that may stifle innovation. But I see O&P taking the challenges of, not much reimbursement at all, and finding ways to use digital technology to help drive revenue to the clinic, help utilize technicians and clinicians' time more efficiently so that the reimbursement that they are getting is maximized to the best of everyone's ability. I personally think that digital is the way too. When we look at other industries that have laborious processes that have gone through this transformation, it's a long transformation. It takes time. There's hiccups. There's oftentimes points where there's adoption really quickly, and then things slow down quickly, and then things slow down. And it's this process. But what other industries have seen is that by digitizing parts of their workflow, they see the efficiency, the cost savings, and it's applicable right here to O&P too. So I think looking at dentistry and how they've gone digital and have seen an increase in adoption in digital with dentistry. I also think about audiology and hearing aids, how that entire industry has gone digital and have began to 3D print all of the hearing aids and molds that way. So I'm confident. I believe that it's just a process. What would you think are some of the things, though, that other clinicians in the industry may want to see before they too believe that the digital is the future?
Well, the one thing they need to see is what value is it adding to my practice? And you just brought up a great point about reimbursement. Well, as the documentation requirements for reimbursement keep increasing, the digital workflow can have a great impact on how good your documentation can be. as opposed to taking a cast every time you're making a new socket or making a new device. If you're taking a scan and then the next time, patient comes in, it's too loose 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. I mean, how long are you going to save a plaster model? But saving a digital scan doesn't take much space.
No.
And then even 3 years later, 5 years later, you rescan the patient, whether it's their residual limb or their leg for an AFO. You can digitally compare the volumetric changes, circumferential changes, and that's documentation right there. I mean, it makes the process so much more efficient, but also it helps you provide quality documentation for establishing the medical necessity of what you're doing, to be able to establish the changes in the residual limb volume and physiology and stuff like that. So that's one thing. People have to see the value it brings to the practice. People have to see the efficiency it adds to the practice. You compare the time from taking a cast to making a positive model to fabricating it traditionally versus how much time it takes in the digital workflow and how much time it can save you. And the third thing, people often ask me the question, well, are these strong enough? Have they been tested on patients?
Yeah.
And my response to them usually is, well, show me the data on your traditionally laminated socket or traditional plastic AFO. Show me where the data is to show that.
Yeah.
I think the best data is when you're trialing it on patients and seeing the outcomes. But if they do want to see data, there is a lot of data available. There's a lot of research that has gone into the 3D printing universe in O&P. Bionic has been a part of a DoD-funded research project with the University of Rosalind Franklin.
Yeah.
We are doing some testing on the strength and durability of 3D printed sockets, and I'm sure there's some testing done on MJF printed devices as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've done our testing, especially on our pediatric AFOs, cyclical testing, 1 million cycles. But I think the data that folks are really wanting to see is the consistent quality, because each of these devices are custom.
Right.
So, I mean, we could validate a specific design process, and that's been done, but what type of quality are we getting on a consistent basis with our actual 3D and additive manufacturing processes? And I think that once practitioners understand that 3D fabrication is oftentimes, like, I can speak for Spenties. We're FDA registered, our fabrication processes. We're ISO certified. So each of these QMS systems in place are oftentimes much more than a traditional orthotics and prosthetics lab. So that our design is validated, but you also get the confidence in the fabrication process. We have the confidence in the validated design and the cyclical testing. So I just think as we continue to grow as an industry, confidence is only going to grow naturally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's just say if you could wave a magic wand and take your experience over the last 7 years as a digital practitioner and place that magic wand and create a scene of what the future 3D lab looks like within an O&P clinic, what would that lab look like?
That lab would look very efficient. That lab, I wouldn't say, the traditional lab will completely go away, because I believe there's always going to be room for stuff that has to be traditionally fabricated. But what I would see is a lot more efficient of a workflow. I would see, clinicians doing the digital modifications on their computers from anywhere in the world. And you have to think about the implications 3D technology can have, not just for day-to-day practice at the clinics here, but also for outreach operations, for you being able to see patients elsewhere with limited resources, take a scan, and then be able to design and print it elsewhere. And I think the long-term effects of the digital workflow can be global. Yeah. It can help make products more affordable for patients, and we can reach a larger population.
So personally, what I think, if I could wave that magic wand and create my own 3D lab, just from my perspective, I think it would look similar to this. But what the lab will look like is over time, you know how O&P has gone from woodworking to the advent of plastics, and but the workshop probably looked a lot similar to this when wood was around, but just different technology and tools all over the workshop. I think that things will be similar but slightly different. This is an evolution, not a revolution.
It is, absolutely.
And possibly would be a printer on one of these counters. Yeah.
I mean, if you have seen our lab in Maryville, Indiana, I mean, instead of having all these draping stations, we just have printers lined up now that do the same thing. You get the same product, you just get it much more efficiently.
So now we're going to go to the 2022 AOPA National Convention here in San Antonio and speak with clinicians about their experience with 3D technology, where they see it going, maybe even some of the challenges they've had. So join us.
Digital and O&P has really come a long way in the last several years. In particular, I think at AOPA, I've noticed that the programming has been amazingly positively impacted, showing that there's momentum gaining towards digital. I think there's been a lot of external forces in the market that have driven people to have to be more efficient, to do more with the same resources. And I think that the solutions have made it a lot easier for people that have very solid clinical skills to be able to transfer those skills into a digital space. That, coupled with the affordability of the technology and the positive outcomes that people have demonstrated with their patients by delivering devices quicker, better fitting in many cases, and I think that digital is going to become mainstream within a couple of years, if not sooner.
I see digital in O&P in the future being so convenient and easy to use for the clinicians hoping to use technology to fabricate prosthetic legs or orthotic devices without any of the confusion that typically comes with technology in general. So much like it's intuitive for clinicians to use plaster, I see those tools getting better and better for digital in O&P to the point that it's intuitive to use them.
You know, I see digital O&P really starting to flourish. I think it's here, I really do. I really began playing around with it when I was actually still in university getting my master's degree. And back then the materials really just were not quite there yet, and so clinicians were not taking it as seriously. But over the past really just 3-4 years, we've seen the materials get there. The 3D printers themselves have become more and more advanced. And that's all very good, but on top of that, the software to design has gotten much better. So the clinical applications are becoming more real. You know, I think the misconception is that if O&P goes towards 3D printing, then the old way has to die. And I don't necessarily think that that has to be true. The way I see it is this is a tool in my toolbox, right? So if I have a patient and I'm trying to solve their problem, I want to have a well-equipped toolbox. And I think if you are wanting to be a very good clinician, you have to be open-minded to learning new things.
I think a lot of it we're seeing, right? You've got a tablet, you've got a computer, you've got some workflow, automation. I think that is really where things are going. The automation along with patient care specific measurements and data and merging that together, I think is a big thing. The other thing is patient customization. So like some of these color type of devices are amazing, but one thing that you can look at here is you also have an emboss with different color. That's not just simple to do. And so there's some patient-specific things that make these devices special and make people want to wear them. So I think some of that, and I think 3D printing, we don't actually know what we don't know. We've been taught in school how to make specific devices. So for instance, like an articulated AFO, well, why do we do it this way? Why is it actually fabricated in two different parts? And we're going to be playing a lot in that because now we have full freedom, specifically with the multi-jet fusion or SLS. So I think we're going to be learning a lot about what is the best way to make these devices, and they're going to be function specific rather than, hey, I'm looking for an articulated AFO. The question really is, what does that brace really need to do, and then I'll design around that.
That was so interesting to hear.
That was fun.
What they had to share, and I believe that everyone's collective mission to utilize digital where it works best within their clinics is what's going to take digital from where it is today to what we were talking about with waving that magic wand and putting those dreams into perspective and reality. It was so nice to do these webinars with you.
Yeah, well, we hope that our audience learned a thing or two about the digital workflow, and hopefully we inspired a few more clinicians and practices to embrace the digital technology in their day-to-day practice. If you have any questions about how to utilize this at your clinics, reach out to Bryan or myself, and we'll be happy to walk you through that process. Again, thank you for joining us in this webinar series. It was a pleasure.
If you want to get started with 3D technology, you know that there's no better time than now. If you would like to try 3D technology, be sure to reach out to me and I'd be happy to give you a full demo of the Spenty's application, as well as find the right patients to maybe do a patient case with. To just get started with 3D technology is a huge step forward. I'd be happy to share it with you. It's been an absolute pleasure over the last 4 webinars. Thank you very much.
Same.
And we'll see you soon. Be sure to reach out if you have any questions at all.
Thank you.